Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow!
Welcome to the Entrepreneur Podcast. I am your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here today. If you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me and our guests, and this way we can get this content out to more people. I'm really excited about this episode today. Of all the guests that have came on the show, this guest has probably known me the longest. We originally got connected back in 2018 through a digital marketing training course, and finally got the chance to meet back in 2020 at an event in Vegas. I've learned an immense amount of information from this guy, so I'm super excited for him to share all his information and wealth of knowledge with you today. He's seen me and my entrepreneurial journey come full circle. He's one of the most genuine, authentic, and down-to-earth people you will ever meet. I had the pleasure of speaking at one of his events back in February and hanging out with him for a few days. He's got another event coming up in late July, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But my guest today is Patric Shannon. Patric is the CEO and founder of LeadSnap. He also has a coaching program called RankMasters and an agency himself. Patric, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, Adam, thank you so much for the introduction. And thanks for having me on the show too, man. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, man, you are one of the most intelligent people that I've honestly ever met. And it's so funny knowing your whole story, and people look at, the digital marketing stuff and LeadSnap and everything like that. But talk to us first a little bit about how you got to where you're at, because that's a fascinating story in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the compliments there. I grew up in a small town in Dayton, Ohio, and came out of college. I was about to graduate in 2001, and the economy really tanked. So I was like, well, let me go back to school. It's a good time to be in school when you can't find a job. So, I double majored in accounting and management information systems, started out in SEO. So my first job into 2001 was in SEO, and it was awful, terrible boss, just like dreaded going to work. And then from there, I moved into being a tax accountant, and I did that for about 2 years. And my personality is just not cut out to be a tax accountant. That was just as bad, but I stayed longer because I'm like, man, maybe I'm not cut out for a job. I just like, what have I done? I've went and spent all this money and this time going to school. Meanwhile, I'm playing poker with a lot of my buddies, and I'm kind of beating up on them, but they drink a lot during the poker game. So hey, what's that really worth? But, started going to some of the casinos and stuff like this, and I was doing well. And finally, I built up enough nerve to put some money in an online poker game. And I put $50 into this website, and this was probably 2004-ish, somewhere around there. And about a month later, I had $10,000 in the account. And I'm like, well, maybe there's something to this, maybe there's something here. But when you're from a small town in Ohio, it's kind of crazy to quit your college professional job to go and play poker for a living. No one's ever heard of that. And anyone that I mentioned to it told me what a foolish idea this was, So I stuck it out, I stuck it out for a year as an accountant. Tax season ended. I won a poker tournament that the prize was I get to go play in Las Vegas in the World Series of Poker. And while I was there, I made more money I made $8,000 to $10,000 in a 2-week time period. I'm like, this is way more than I'm making as an accountant. I enjoy it. And I got the nerve up, man. And I finally made the decision to pull the trigger and quit. And then, a little ways after, I moved out to Vegas, and I spent a decade playing poker for a living. And, it went from something I really enjoyed to something I love to, you start to see the same characters. You start to realize that, hey, maybe this isn't the best thing to do with my life. I felt like I was having a negative impact on people. There were people that their electricity was getting shut off, and it was my job to take their money, but hey, they're making that decision. And, you've got kind of that logic side of your brain and that emotional side, and logically I could justify it, but emotionally it just didn't feel right. So what ended up happening is they had banned online poker. Then they brought it back, but in Nevada only. And during that time period, I was like, I got to get out of this casino. This is toxic. There's people screaming at me when they lose and smoke, and there's hookers walking around. It's just like, this is not the place for me to be. So I started playing online. The sites were terrible. And you know what? I was like, I want to learn something new, because I was looking for a way out of poker. So I decided I was going to build a tool. I didn't have experience as a software engineer at this point, but at the time it was LinkedIn Learning. I signed up. I started learning like how to build a website and how to, do some programming and track things. So I built a tool to take notes on poker players. And, after a little while, the website came out with a tool. They improved their software, and it kind of made what I had obsolete, but I had learned to be a software engineer at that point, and someone had offered me a job. So I spent the next few years doing like Android and iPhone applications. So this was like 2012, 2013. And at this point I started my own software company. I'm social. It's weird trying to go between these different lives. The people that are software engineers, I love them, but they're very different than the people that play poker. It was a completely different vibe. But we started the software company, started getting some opportunities for building some projects. And what happens if you're social is like businesses will come to you and say, hey, can you build my website? And after a while, I was like, these websites I'm building, well, they're not really going to help these people. What they want is new business. And this website is just going to it's going to look good and function well, but it wasn't going to rank. So I started getting into marketing, and that's actually where we ended up meeting in that marketing coaching program. Right. So that was like 2000. I think I started that around 2015, 2016. And then, as we were building that, we realized, hey, there's a lot of opportunities to improve the way the process is working. And that's where we built LeadSnap, the software for our agency. And, this was what one thing has led to another, Adam. It's kind of crazy going back through it and being like, was that my life? Did all that stuff happen? But that's the way it all unfolded,
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I didn't know about some of the other websites and apps, and I didn't know the software engineer part of it. I really just knew the poker part of it, but that makes the story even that much better. So tell us a little bit about LeadSnap, because I know we have quite a few digital marketers that listen to this podcast, and just people in general. I think it's just a phenomenal tool, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was really frustrated dealing with all these softwares that were out there. You're paying for 6 or 7 different subscriptions, and none of the stuff worked. In my opinion, none of it was built as if like somebody in the business had built it. It was all doing like, 70% of the job. And you end up trying to like daisy chain all this stuff together through Zapier. And it's just, it was frustrating. So I was like, well, you know what? Let me build some internal things. And, we started building it to manage our leads, right? We had all these leads that were coming in for these different clients, and we didn't know who was getting what. And that was costing us a lot of money to not have that information. And so we built that to manage leads. And then we were like, well, let's stop spam, because there's patterns that exist. So then we built the spam blockers, right? And then we built stuff to manage our Google. At the time, it was our Google My Businesses. Right now, it's Google Business Profiles. So we built that. And then we need something to track the rankings. And then we needed something to send the leads to our clients. And so we built our automations that had follow-up. And then we're paying a lot of money for a phone service. So we built our own phone system. And, somewhere along the way, this has always been an internal tool. I had no plans to sell this. And I was at a conference, maybe similar to the conference that we met at, Adam. And a guy's asking me, he's like, hey, how do you solve this problem here? And I was like, well, we built this internal tool to help us manage this stuff. And he's like, well, can I see that? Can I take a look at this? And I was like, I hadn't shown this. It was like my baby. I hadn't shown this to anyone. It wasn't meant for other people's eyes. I was like, all right, I'll show you this thing. And then he's like, can I pay you to use this? And I was like, oh, this is a business. I didn't know. Like that's what we got here is we got a potential business here. And a couple of years later, we launched it and now, we have users all over the world. So it's been really cool to see how this thing has grown and other people have adopted it. And it's made a big difference for our ability to close clients, manage clients, cut our costs, also streamline our business, scaling, all sorts of stuff. You used it for a while, Adam, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, we still use it as well for heat maps and some of the automation stuff. I think just especially for the rank and rent style, like it is just an absolute no-brainer. People that are trying to manage all those different websites, the lead flows, it's just an all-in-one solution instead of having to go in all these different directions, and it helps keep clients on, which is like the name of the game. It's a lot easier to keep clients than it is to go have to just continue to sell, which you obviously want to do too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's hard to make the right decision if you don't have the right data. And that was a big part of this for me is like, I'm taking guesses or I have all these spreadsheets to try to gather things. Before we had that heat map, what we used to do is we used to use some tools to do a search from a zip code, and then we would put it into a spreadsheet, and then we'd go zip code to zip code for the entire area that we were trying to rank for. And it was like, and we actually color coded it to like green, yellow, and red. Yeah. And it was like, it has made things so much. Now that thing finishes in like 20 seconds, right? And we can stack up a bunch of keywords right next to them, and we can track things over time. I don't know if you saw the rank tracking that we have, because how I was feeling is like, hey, these maps, they're great for closing clients. I mean, I think it is the best closing tool that I've ever seen for a local marketing agency to just get that grid in front of them. And we've kind of perfected our pitch over time. But as far as once they are your client, then we have to start the management of them and make sure that the things are trending in the right way. And just looking at those maps, I mean, we can tell and we can see the average, but now we've got like graphs that are showing us like, hey, a month ago I was here, 3 months ago I was here. So you have that data for like actual rank tracking and not just like the heat map on its own, that was something that I think was missing until recently for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so you've taken that, and then you've also obviously got your agency, and then you started RankMasters as well. So tell us a little bit about what you got going on at RankMasters.
Yeah. So just like you, like we had a lot of calls, a lot of coaching sessions, and there's probably been more than 1,000 people that I've coached. And, my goal is to have an impact. And I kind of felt like I was getting pulled in a lot of different directions, and I'm like giving away a lot of information, which like, hey, I'm happy to do. I love helping people, but I felt like, hey, maybe if I create a paid coaching program, then I can allocate resources to, make sure that everyone that's a part of the program gets the service that they want. And I can have somewhere to move people to. Also, what was really frustrating is, I would jump on a Zoom call with someone for an hour. I'm not charging them anything. I would give them advice on like, hey, I'm having this problem. And you know what? I had that exact problem. And I tried these 7 things. And the 8th one was the one that worked. And I'll walk them through it. I'll show them stuff. And then like 3 months later, they'll reach back out to me and be like, hey, I'm still having that problem. Like, what have you done? And did you try our strategy? And they're like, I didn't. No, I didn't try it. I really haven't done much since that call. And it's like, it's so frustrating for me to spend my time and have these people not really be invested. But I think once they put some money up, they got some skin in the game. They're showing that they're serious about it. And I love to work with those type of people where they're in a mental position to have an impact, right? And accept this rather than it's just like blasting it out into the universe. And then, we never hear from them or they don't take action on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously I know how much value you've provided over the years for free. And I've been guilty of getting on calls with you and watching all of what you do and consuming your content. but I think this has set the stage for where you're going in this next season that you're already in, but that's really going to take to the next level. And I want people to re-listen back to what he was just saying, because there's two key lessons that you want to take away. One is, in order to be successful and to have a purpose and to have impact, you have to provide value first before it's actually worthy enough of people paying you. And two, when you're the type of person that just consumes information and does nothing with it, you're only hurting yourself, but you're hurting other people as well, because they're taking advantage of the situation, taking advantage of the value and all those things, and they're not furthering themselves, right? And so it's amazing to see, because I remember when you first launched it and you were doing these weekly Wednesday calls, and you've consistently done that over and over and over again. You've consistently done the content. You've consistently done all of those things. My one question would be, over the course of your entire journey, so we're talking about all these different years in entrepreneurship, what is the one big lesson that you've extracted that would help save people years worth of mistakes?
The one thing, huh? It's a great podcast question, man. So I've got so many things running through my head. I think getting the right mentors early can really help you shortcut the time. It was really hard in the beginning, especially when this is a whole new world. And there's so much information to consume in an agency world and SEO. There's so much misinformation. And sometimes you don't know how to sort that out. And I think that's part of the reason maybe people don't take action with it. It's like, hey, is this really going to work for me? And what works for me may not work for you. Right. So if they knew that this was a guarantee, right, then they would probably take action. But when you surround yourself with people who are a little bit further down the journey, that have a collection of other people that have had success, and you spend time with them and you have the ability to see how they do things, you're going to get there faster. That I think is absolutely true. And I wish I've spent a lot of money over the last 3 or 4 years joining different masterminds, and because of that, I've created some amazing relationships, and I've had access to some of the top coaches. Right now, my coach, I know you've heard of my coach. My coach that is Dan Martell, right? So I'm a part of SaaS Academy. He's one of the highest performers I've ever met in my life, just an absolutely brilliant guy. And to be able to be in his world and kind of experience, and the people that he has surrounded himself are so high level. That's another big lesson, Adam, is, in the beginning, I tried to hire the cheapest people and then train them. And what I learned is sometimes cheaper is actually more expensive, right? Where we go down this road and I need the best companies have brilliant people. And I made that mistake too, so I've got it narrowed down to 2 for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. And tell us a little bit more about, I know you mentioned you spent a bunch of money in these masterminds and things like that. So many people think of it and look at it as an expense, which is already the wrong frame of mind. It's a return on investment. But surrounding yourselves with those people, I know you mentioned condensing time, getting into their networks and learning from people. What would you say to somebody that is not investing in themselves or scared to actually join those mastermind groups?
Yeah, I mean, you can look at it as expensive, but I can tell you, every one that I've gone through, I've been the one, if I can put myself around high performers with really high level coaches, I'm not going to be the person in the room that's not going to get value. I might be the person in the room that annoys people because I'm asking questions and I'm persistent, but the cost of not joining those, and I had the same mindset. I was like, the cost of not joining those masterminds and groups it's almost hard to calculate. I mean, one of the guys who's a partner with me in RankMasters, I met him in one of those groups, and he runs one of the biggest business acquisition and equity company, business acquisition and consulting for equity companies in the world. So I would have never met him. I wasn't thrilled with the actual coaching that the resources that were available within the coaching program. And it was an expensive program. It was $30,000 for 6 months. Right. But the connections that I've made are worth way more than that. The conversations I've had with this guy, and even one of our speakers is one of the coaches that was at that event. It's just, you keep adding in tools to your tool belt, leveling up, making connections, you get these opportunities, and it may not come back to you and like, because of this, my agency has increased by, $4,000 a month or $10,000. That may not be how it comes back to you. It may be like, hey, let's start a business with this person. And then their take on this turns us into a 7-figure business for us, right? Mm-hmm. We're like, how do we know what percentage of that is? But I would say, if you look at the most successful people in any industry, they all have coaches, they all have people helping them. And if that's where you want to go, if that's where you want your business to go, if you don't want to kind of like creep by, then maybe go with them. Imagine trying to, be great at anything and having no coaching, no exposure to any type of expertise to help you get there faster. Well, like it's obviously going to shortcut it if you can get in front of the right people. And so that's what it's been about for me.
That's awesome. I appreciate you sharing that. So tell us a little bit, as we wrap everything up here, tell us a little bit about the event coming up next month.
Yeah, so this is our second one, kind of like our second paid event. We were doing these for free just to get people together for a long time. This one is going to be July 27th through 30th. It's in Orlando. We're bringing in some really high-level speakers. These masterminds create these relationships that allow us to get access to some of these people that I would never have access to in my normal life if I didn't get out there. So we've got Chris Evans, who is a partner in traffic funnels. Chris Evans has multiple 7 and multiple 8-figure businesses that he's run simultaneously. I think he manages 180 people in well, he doesn't manage them, but his team does.
Yeah.
One of the big things I learned from Chris, Chris, I think is one of the best marketers in the world. And, if it weren't for my relationship with one of our other speakers, Chris Moore, who you met at the last event, who owns part of that business acquisition, I would never have had access to Chris Evans. But Chris Evans, one of the things I learned from him is peace and happiness is a constraint. So he's running all these businesses, but he's doing it's a requirement that he's not all stressed out, that he has time with his family. He's one of those people that really prioritizes that stuff first. So he's going to be there just with an amazing wealth of knowledge. We have a person who I met we were out at the Traffic and Conversion Summit in San Diego. I don't know if you saw it was essentially like the best booth at the event. It was for Link Graph. And so I became friends with the founder. His name's Monik. So Monik Bond. So Monik is an absolute beast with the SEO stuff. He competes on a national level, and he's created a tool that is a competitor with Ahrefs or SEMrush. We're doing a lot of like SEO research. Absolutely brilliant guy. He doesn't do the local stuff, but he wins at the national level. Actually, like last weekend, I was going home to where I went to college, Cincinnati, and Monik is like, hey, I'm going back to Ohio. He actually lives in the same city as me. And he was like, hey, Patrick, I'm buying this yacht in Marco Island, and I've got to take it through the Keys and up through Miami. Would you be willing to join me on this yacht for this maiden voyage? And I was like, well, Monik, that's kind of a lot to ask, but I will hang out with you on the yacht and go through the Keys. I will do this for you.
Yeah.
But he was asking me like, hey, Patrick, where did you go to college? And I told him University of Cincinnati, and he's like, oh, that's one of my clients. So he's competing with like huge national companies, and he's been doing it for a long time. And he's built a tool that really gives him an amazing advantage on this. So his SEO brain is just like off the charts. So I'm really excited I'm excited because he actually lives in the same city as me, and we met at that place in San Diego. So we've built a really good friendship. And we've talked a ton of SEO. And if you can win at national SEO, what does that mean when you bring that stuff locally? And you're not swimming in the deep ocean anymore. You're out on the playground, and you're taking some of these skills and strategies. So I think that's going to be phenomenal for people. And then, Dan Martell, as I was mentioning earlier, his head coach for the last like 6 or 7 years within his program is Marcel Petapas, and Marcel runs Paraquito, which is a big digital marketing software for streamlining operations and controlling the finances of agencies. And he has that company for marketing agency, but then he's also been around. He's been like the number one guy for Dan Martell for 6 or 7 years. So just for those of you guys who don't know, Dan Martell, I think he's had the number 2 on the bestseller list behind Atomic Habits pretty much since he launched his book, 6 months ago. So absolute high performer, and having Marcel there is going to be amazing. We have one other person that I think is going to confirm today. We don't have the confirmation on it, but this company is the only company for the next 12 months that has the ability to turn on the book online feature for home service providers. They have a partnership with Google, and it's not one of those like spammy partnerships where like, people from India or wherever saying, hey, I'm partners with Google. This is, they have like, they're a venture capital funded. They've worked on this relationship for a long time. They work in the scheduling. So we're going to have probably the ability during this event to just like turn on the book online features. And they're estimating with Google that it's going to increase conversions for local services by 30 to 40%. So wow. We partnered with them. So whenever a lead comes through their system, it goes directly into LeadSnap, which is a phenomenal opportunity for us. And this guy, he's another person that's in Dan Martell's coaching with me. So we've kind of built that friendship. So 4 days, we're at a mansion. It's got 20 bedrooms. We got a bowling alley inside the mansion. We've got catered meals. We have laser tag inside the mansion. We're going to have a Thursday like meet and greet with the bartender. Friday and Saturday, we have the speakers there from like 9 to 5. We have catered meals during the day, but then on for the VIPs on Saturday night, we're going out to a really nice dinner, several VIP sessions throughout the weekend. And then on Sunday, we have a pool party in the backyard. We have a DJ, we have a bartender. The backyard, there's actually a lazy river. I've never been to a house that has a lazy river in it. There's a lazy river that runs through the backyard in this house. And there's actually a double-sided theater out there. So it's going to be an amazing time, man. And like Adam, you were at the last event, right? I think we have a pretty cool community. It's really like open and giving and it feels a lot like a family.
Yeah, no, the one thing that I would say is you guys have built a community of like-minded individuals that are all willing to share and provide education consistently. Like that's the one thing is there was so many conversations that I had where we were talking about just things on how we can get better personally, professionally, and everybody was just sharing their secrets. And it wasn't like one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, I have to hold in what's got me here because I'm afraid that these people, because everybody in that room technically could be competitors, right? But you couldn't sense that at all. It was literally so cool to see. And I'm super excited to hear how the event turns out. And if you're listening, like I'm telling you, I was at the last event. I spoke at the last event. They do things right. So definitely make sure that you check out this event. Patrick, what is the link for the event? We'll put that in the show notes and promote it.
Yeah, it's leadsnapevents.com/Adam is what we want people to go through.
Awesome.
And then if you want to see the speakers that we have there, you can go to leadsnapevents.com/Orlando-info, and you can kind of read the bios of the speakers that we have on there. That 4 speakers not on there yet. There's also some testimonials on there from people that are sharing some of their experiences, man. I'm super excited for it, Adam. It's like looking back on the last like event, that was one of my favorite times of the year, just having all those people there hanging out. And what Dan Martell always says is what's caught, not taught. Like we're bringing in these super high level speakers with amazing knowledge and tons of experience and all kinds of awards and all this stuff. And they're going to lay us on with some amazing content. But just like you said, it's those conversations where somebody says something a certain way, they phrase it, and you're like, wait, so you do that, you do that. And then you ask like 3 or 4 follow-up questions. And then you have this kind of like epiphany of, I would have never thought to do it that way, and it's what's in between the lectures. And that's why we love having it at a mansion. So we can have a lot more of that, like personal networking interaction type time. And, with the bartender is there not to make sure people have fun, but I think it helps people loosen up. It helps people relax. And when you're having meals and you're breaking bread and having some drinks with people, we start to open up about like, we release the grip of like, I've got to hold this close to my cuff here. And if everyone has that kind of abundance mindset, then I mean, that just elevates the event a ton.
Oh yeah. No, definitely, man. We'll make sure to put all that stuff in the show notes. And then where can people stay connected with you online and just follow you and everything you have going on?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I pride myself on being approachable. So anyone that's listening to, feel free to reach out to me. Don't feel like it's inappropriate or whatever. I love making connections. For me, life is about these relationships and friendships. So, I'm on Facebook a lot. So Patric Shannon, I don't have a K on my name. So there's not very many of those. I'm also friends with Adam. So that'll make it easy to find. I use LinkedIn. We have our group, the facebook.com. Let me just double check the address there. So we have our Lead Snap group that we still do those weekly calls. We do the best we can to try to provide as much value in that group. It's a free group though. So if you go to facebook.com/group/leadsnap, right? You can find our group there. But yeah, those are probably the best spots to stay connected with me.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on the episode today. I learned more even about you, and I'm excited for the audience to take a listen, and hopefully we get some people to that event. So thanks again for coming on, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me, Adam. Always a pleasure to talk to you, man, and catch up.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. And thank you to the audience for tuning into today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow.